All right, everyone let me know when they see that Advanced Get chart pop up on their screen here. Okay. How about our fellow from down under? All right, good. I want to make sure that we're not experiencing too much of a lag time here. All right, good deal. Well, judging from the people that I talked to before, it seems like most people have had the program for a little while, so I won't belabor the initial thing that I was going to go over, and that's how to load a chart, unless there are specific questions on how to load a chart with the program. Does anybody have a specific question on how to actually bring up a chart onto the screen? Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead then and just begin with some functionality of the program. I've brought up a chart here, and this is just a regular chart. This is how it would show up when you first load the program. It's got the white background with the grid on it and the bars in place where they would be normally. Myself, I don't like to stare at a white screen all day because I have very sensitive eyes. So I like to change the color of the background of the chart so it's easier on my eyes, and change a few other things about the properties of the chart itself. So I'm going to begin by going over a little bit of the properties of the chart so that you can customize your chart how you would like to view yourself. So over here on the left-hand toolbar, just below the icon button that looks like a red plus sign, we find the properties icon button. It looks like a hand holding a piece of paper. If I go ahead and select that, it's going to bring up the chart properties window. And it's in this window that I can begin to change some of the appearance of how my chart looks when I bring it up. I said I like to change the background color, so I'm going to go up here to Chart Backgrounds and select from the drop-down menu here. I like this medium gray right there. So I'm going to go ahead and select that for my background. The white space over here in number 12 indicates the amount of space beyond the last bar on the chart. I like to do a lot of drawing out there, so I'm going to increase that value up to 25. The thickness of the bars, it just has to do with how thick they display on your screen. I'm going to increase that to 3. And then the spacing of the bars has to do with the amount of space between each bar. I'll increase that to 10. This dotted background that we have, we call it a grid, behind the chart, behind the bars themselves, I don't find that very helpful, so I like to turn mine off. So I'll go ahead and do that. When I hit OK, you'll see that the properties of the chart have changed. This is how I like to view my charts. It's a nice easy color on my eyes. The bars are nice and thick. I can see them. I've got plenty of room out to the right of the chart where I can do my technical analysis and write myself notes and that sort of thing. And it's just a little easier for me to work with this way. I would like for my charts to show up in this manner all the time whenever I bring up a chart. So I'm going to go ahead and select that Properties button once more. And then you'll notice in the lower right-hand corner of this menu, I have a button labeled Defaults. You'll see this button throughout the Advanced Get program, and it will allow you to set the defaults that you want to keep all the time. I'm going to select the Defaults button, and you'll notice the selection for Save Current Settings as Default. If I go ahead and select that, it has now saved the changes that I've made to the chart properties, and now each time I bring up a new chart, it's going to retain these properties and bring the chart up the way I like it. The properties of the Advanced Get chart. Now I heard a bunch of people join us while I was explaining that. I want to make sure everybody's caught up with us here. Okay, so at this point everybody should know how to load an Advanced Get chart and should know how to change the basic properties of the chart itself. From here we need to begin adding some technical analysis to the chart so we can begin analyzing the chart for a trading decision. All around the edge of Advanced Get, you'll notice the toolbar buttons. This is where we get all the technical analysis that we put onto the chart. Now I'm going to go ahead and add a couple of basic studies. I'll go to the left-hand toolbar up toward the top and select the Elliott Wave button. And then up here across the top toolbar, I'll find the OSC button, which stands for the oscillator. I'll go ahead and select that as well. And just to select something from another toolbar, over here on the left you'll see moving averages. I'll go ahead and select that and apply a 20-period moving average on there. I took those studies from 3 different toolbars, which may seem like we have things spread out all over the place in these toolbars and might be difficult to find. If you have a difficult time locating the studies that you want from each of the toolbars, just above the Elliott button on the left-hand toolbar is a button labeled Study. And if I select that, it's going to give me a drop-down menu which will include all the studies available to apply to the program. So if you don't like selecting them from different toolbars, you can select all of them from this Study menu. I'm going to go ahead and apply. We'll put a stochastic on there. We'll put an ADX-VMI on there. Put an RSI on there and a MACD. Here's a lot of studies below the chart, and they're taking up a significant amount of space on my screen, leaving me only a little bit of space up at the top for the bars. What we've done in Advanced Get is allowed you to retain all of these studies on your chart while giving yourself a maximum amount of space. We can do this by stacking the studies. I'm going to go ahead and right-click on any one of these studies here, and you'll see in the list Stack Studies. If I go ahead and select that, it makes it so I can see one study at a time while giving me access to the rest of the studies by way of these tabs at the bottom of the chart. If I'd like to look at my RSI, I can select the RSI tab, and there's my RSI study. To go to the stochastics, select the stochastics tab. To go back to the oscillator, just select the oscillator tab. So that's how we can apply multiple studies to the chart and still give us plenty of room to be able to look at what's important, that being the bars. Okay, we will go ahead and move on then here. If I'd like to remove any one of these studies from the chart, if I'd like to remove the ADX-DMI from the bottom, I can select the ADX-DMI and right-click on it and select Remove Current Study. And that removes the ADX-DMI from the chart. If I'd like to remove the Elliott count from the chart, I need only to select the Elliott button on the left-hand toolbar again, and Elliott gets removed. A moving average, or Gann line, or Gaussian channel, or something from this toolbar on the left-hand side toward the bottom, I can select the button in which there will be a Remove button. I can select it, and now my moving average has been removed. If I'd like to get it back, I just select the moving average button again and hit OK, and select the Elliott button once again, and the Elliott has returned to my screen. Okay, so we've added studies, we've removed studies, we've gotten them back again. Let's just assume that these studies that I've applied to this chart are the studies that I like to use at all times. This is the grouping of studies that I would like to be applied to every chart that I bring up in the Advanced Get program. In other words, I would like to save this setup as my template. I can right-click on my chart and select Templates from the menu. You can see I've done this a few times before in a few different cities. I'm going to go ahead and give this a name. We'll just call it my WebEx template. So I've right-clicked on the chart, selected Templates from the menu. I've given it a name. Now I need only to hit the Save button. And now I have this saved as my WebEx template. And we'll come back to using the templates here again in a few moments. So we've brought up the chart. We've set the property defaults with the gray background, with no grid, the thicker bars with more space between them. We've applied studies to the chart. We've removed studies from the chart. We've stacked the studies. And we've set up a template thus far. And this is all on one chart. I want to make sure we don't have any questions on any of that before we move on. We're about to get a little bit more in depth. Do we have any questions from anyone before we move on? Okay, that was done over here on the left-hand toolbar there's a button that looks like a hand holding a piece of paper. That's the Properties button. When I select that, in the top middle, there's a selection for backgrounds and a one marked chart. That's for your chart background. I just selected a new color from that drop-down menu right there. Am I speaking very far ahead of when you see it on your screen? Is anybody experiencing a great deal of delay? Okay, great. Does that answer your question, sir? Okay, excellent. All right. At times, I like to work with more than one chart at any given time. If I want to get an additional chart onto my advanced Get screen, I need to go up again and go to File and New Chart. And we'll just pick any chart here, ZOMX, I'm not sure who they are, and I'll hit the Load button. Now, since I have my chart filling up the entire screen, I can't see the chart that was on there before, but it's still there. I can view that other chart by going to the Window menu, and you'll see in the list there that my ZRAN chart is still there. And if I select it from the Window menu, it brings me back to ZRAN. So going to File and New Chart brings up an additional chart on my screen. I'm going to go back to that ZOMX chart and close it down. So now we're left with just the ZRAN chart. So we're back to one chart in the Advanced Get program. And I'm going to show you how we can apply that template that we just created to a new chart that we create. I'll select File and New Chart, which brings up the Issue window. In the lower right-hand corner of the Issue window, I have a selection that says Apply Template. I'm going to place a check mark in there, and from the drop-down menu, I'll select WebEx Template. When I select the Load button, it has now loaded my new chart with all of the same studies and indicators that we saved in our WebEx template. So we now have, if we consult the Window menu, two charts loaded in Advanced Get. The one that's visible is the one marked with the check mark, and the one behind it is the one without a check mark. I'd like to be able to evenly split my screen to be able to view both of those charts at the same time. In the same Window menu, you'll see a selection for Tile Horizontally and Tile Vertically. I'm going to go ahead and select Tile Vertically, and you'll notice that my screen gets evenly split between both charts. And now I can view two charts at the same time. That's what Tile Vertically looks like. I'll select Tile Horizontally so you can see what that looks like as well. So I can split my screen in either direction using Tile Horizontally and Tile Vertically. Are there any other questions on using multiple charts? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and maximize my ZRAN chart here so it fills up the whole screen. If I don't want to load an additional chart into my program, I can just change the properties of the chart that I'm looking at currently to view a different symbol. For instance, we're right now looking at ZRAN on a daily time frame. If I would like to look at IBM, I don't have to load a new chart. I can just change this chart to a new symbol. I do that by just typing on my keyboard. I can just type IBM on my keyboard, and you'll notice a quick load menu pop up in the middle of the screen. To change the chart to IBM, I need only now to hit the Enter button, and the chart will change to IBM. I can type AOL and hit Enter, and the chart changes to AOL, or MSFT and Enter, and the chart changes to Microsoft. I can take that quick load a step further and also change the time frame of the chart that I'm looking at. If I would like to look at IBM on a weekly time frame, I can type IBM, W on my chart in the quick load menu, and when I hit enter, it changes me to an IBM weekly chart, which you'll notice in the very upper left-hand corner of the Get window. Or if I'd like to go back to my ZRAN, D for daily, I can change back to a daily ZRAN chart. I'm going to go ahead and go back to a vertically tiled screen here, so you can see both my ZRAN daily chart and my ZOMX daily chart. I'm going to change the ZOMX to a weekly chart so that I have a weekly and a daily chart on my screen. If I'm looking at two charts at the same time and I would like both of these charts to change to the symbol that I'm looking at, I can change both of them at the same time using the quick load feature as well. If I'd like both of these charts to be IBM, I can type IBM and then G. The G stands for global. I'm going to globally be changing all of the charts that are open in Advanced Get. And when I hit enter, you'll notice that both charts have now changed to IBM and have retained their time period. The chart on the left is still a daily, and the chart on the right is still a weekly. So again, I'll do that once more. I'll type AOL, G for global, and hit enter. And now both charts are AOL. And type ZRAN, G, and hit enter. And now both charts are ZRAN. Do you have any questions on the quick load feature? All right, excellent. You'll notice on the lower left-hand toolbar, the toolbar extends farther than my screen capacity can hold. There are more toolbar buttons down below this Price Clusters button that you can see. We have the availability in Advanced Get to customize all of our toolbars. You'll notice the top button in that toolbar says Auto GAN. You've lost Advanced Get. You no longer see Advanced Get on your screen? Is anyone else experiencing that? Okay. Sir, it's possible that you accidentally exited the session here. Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what it is you are seeing on your screen. Okay, great. Well, we're over here on the left-hand toolbar down toward the bottom where it says Auto GAN. That's the top button on that toolbar. Just above that Auto GAN button, you'll see a line denoting the end of this toolbar and the beginning of the next. If I click with my right mouse button in the space between the Auto GAN button and that line, it's going to bring up a customized toolbar menu. On the right-hand side are all the buttons that are currently included in that toolbar. I can either remove buttons from the toolbar by highlighting it. I'll highlight the trade profile and I'll select the remove button, and it has now taken that toolbar button and placed it on the left-hand side, which are the available toolbar buttons. Or I can move buttons up and down in the toolbar. I'll select the XTL button and keep selecting the move up button until that becomes the top button on the toolbar. And you'll now see that XTL is at the top of my toolbar list. So if you find that there are buttons in this toolbar that you don't use, you can either put them toward the bottom of the toolbar, or you can simply remove them from the toolbar altogether. I'll go ahead and just remove some toolbars until I get to the point where all of the toolbar buttons are visible on the screen. And now you'll see that below TJ's Web there are no more toolbar buttons, and everything that I use is included in the toolbar. I can hit the close button. So now all of my usable toolbar buttons in this lower left-hand corner are all visible. If I'd like to get this back to how it was originally from the factory, I can go back to Customize Toolbar and select the Reset button, and it places all of the toolbar buttons back to their original location. And you can do the same thing in any of the other toolbars as well. Right now I'm just removing buttons from the top toolbar, and you'll see it getting smaller. Now I have more room at the top. You can also, they're still there, they're still available in the program. They just went over to the left-hand side of that Customize Toolbar menu. Let me go ahead and right-click on that toolbar to get it back. If I'd like to put them back in there, they're available on the left-hand side, and I can just highlight them and hit the Add button, and that places them back into the toolbar again. Or I can hit the Reset button, which places them all back in where they were originally. You can also take these toolbars and place them anywhere you'd like to on your window. Instead of using the left mouse button in that small space between the last button and the line, instead of using the right, I'll hold my left mouse button down in that area, and I can drag these toolbars anywhere I'd like to on my screen. Now you'll see I have a bunch of toolbars just floating around in the middle of my Get menu. I can just take them all over into one place, stack them however I want them to appear. So you can customize where your toolbars are located as well. I'm going to go ahead and mimic a customer environment that I've seen many a time. I accidentally hit the little X in the upper right-hand corner of several of my toolbars, and now they're gone. I've presented this option to several people in the past, and I've gotten phone calls back later that week expressing that they'd lost some toolbars. It's very simple to retrieve those again. You need only to go to the View menu up at the top, and you'll see that some of the toolbars are missing check marks to the left of them. Left-clicking on the Chart Tools selection will bring my Chart Tools toolbar back to this again. Drawing Tools brings the Drawing Tools back, and Period Toolbar brings our period back as well. I've also had customers get to this state where they have toolbars floating around on their monitor, and they'd like to get them back to the original location again without too much trouble. And that's easy enough to do as well with the View menu. You can just select Dock All Toolbars from the menu, and that places all of the toolbars right back to their original default location. So you can customize your Advanced Get window however you'd like it to best fit your trading style. Do you have any questions on customizing the toolbars? All right, excellent. Let's go ahead and move on then. I'm going to maximize this ZRAN chart here, and let's begin talking a little bit about some Elliott wave theory. We're moving on now from some of the chart manipulation, where to click to do what, to a little bit of theory now, and this will start to introduce some of the trading strategies that we talk about with Advanced Get. You'll see on this chart a basic Elliott pattern. This is an impulse pattern, and what we'll deal with most with the Elliott. You'll notice on here that we have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the up direction. This is an impulse Elliott wave pattern. You'll at times see a corrective Elliott wave pattern, which will include ABCs, as you see back here, we have an A, B, C in the down direction and an A, B, C in the up direction as well. We tend to not worry about these A, B, C phases in Elliott because we can't really draw much statistically in order to enter a trading opportunity with the A, B, C patterns. With the advanced get strategies, we're going to stick with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mentality. We're going to speak about a type 1 trade and a type 2 trade. In a type 1 trading opportunity, we're looking to enter the market after wave 4 has completed itself. In a type 2 trading strategy, we'd like to enter the market after wave 5 has completed. And I'll explain the differences between those. I'm going to go ahead and jump into training mode and put us back to where we were just shy of a month ago. We're now looking at ZRAN as it was on the 16th of June, which happens to be my daughter's birthday. You'll notice that we're in an Elliott Wave 4 pattern, which is the first check mark for a type 1 trade. So first, we want to be able to be identifying an Elliott Wave 4. The second thing we want to look at is this Elliott oscillator, which is represented down here at the bottom. You'll notice in the upper left-hand corner of that oscillator that we're looking at a 535 oscillator. And what that means is we're looking at the difference between a 5-period moving average and a 35-period moving average. This being a short class, I don't have time to go into too much of the history behind the oscillator. Just know that during any wave 3, which is usually the largest wave in a 5-wave sequence, we have a very large oscillator pattern with a high peak, which we see in this chart here. Coming down from that high peak during wave 4, we expect that 535 oscillator to return down to 0. Now we will qualify a 535 oscillator being returned to 0 if it retraces at least 90% from the peak of the oscillator during wave 3. So if we move down at least 90%, we qualify that as pulling back to 0. Conversely from that, if we continue in the down direction another 40% below the 0 line, we would say that it has been disqualified. We don't want to exceed a 40% retracement in the opposite direction. So it must pull back at least 90%, no more than 140%. So rule number 2 is oscillator pullback. And again, it must be at least 90%, no more than 140%. Our third rule deals with what we call the profit-taking index. You'll see it marked in red just above the text that I'm writing here. PTI stands for profit-taking index. We call the profit-taking phase this wave 4. There were many people going long this market during this wave 3. Everyone was jumping on the bull bandwagon here, and the market continued to rise. At some point in time, those that were long during this wave 3 are going to want to start taking profits. That's what generates this retracement phase, or this profit-taking phase that we call wave 4. The PTI, in a sense, is measuring whether or not we have normal profit-taking going on during wave 4. If the profit-taking is normal, then this PTI value will stay above 35. If the profit-taking is abnormal, the number drops below 35. We often have the question, is 97 any better than 37? And the answer to that is no. You can think of the PTI as either a yes or a no as far as its rule base is concerned. As long as it's any value above 35, the PTI is considered good. So our Third rule is that our PTI is greater than 35. And incidentally, this PTI value shows up automatically whenever the Elliott waves are turned on. And it only shows up during a wave 4 in the Elliott phase. So the PTI will always be there during a wave 4 with Elliott. Rule number 4 in the type 1 trade. You'll see below the wave 4 blue, green, and red hash marks. Technically, these are referred to as the wave 4 channels. Most of our customers wind up affectionately referring to them as the railroad tracks. So if you call them railroad tracks, we'll know exactly what you mean. Or the hash marks. These are actually lines of statistical probability. In this market here, we've moved beyond the blue line, which represents an 80% chance of making new highs in this market. So if ZRAN were to hold above the blue line, which it did not, it violated it, then we would say that we had at least an 80% chance of making new highs in this market. That's correct. So in this case, we've gone below the blue. So we've moved beyond that blue line. However, we're still holding the green line. The green line represents a 60% chance or better of making new highs in this market. So the green line is still holding. So we have a better than 60% chance of making new highs in this market. If the red wave 4 channel is broken, we consider that to be a less than 40% chance of making new highs. So our rule number 4 is, are the wave 4 channels holding? These are our 4 rules for an Elliott type 1 trade. We have to be in an Elliott wave 4, which we have in this case. The oscillator must pull back a minimum of 90%, a maximum of 140%, which obviously we have in this case. Our profit-taking index must be greater than 35. We have a value of 37 on this chart, which again is no better than a value of 97. And we have a PTI that's greater, we have our wave 4 channels holding. The green wave 4 channel in this case is holding, representing a better than 60% chance of making new highs in this market. Are there any questions on the rules for an Elliott type 1 trade? Okay. Now I want to point out something very important here. Have I mentioned at all yet that we went ahead and triggered into this trade and we're now long ZRAN? The answer is no. We have not yet implemented any kind of triggering mechanism to trigger us into this trade. I'm going to go ahead and remove the moving average here. What I'm going to use as a trigger method in this trade is the regression trend channels. You'll find that in the upper right-hand corner of the chart with the 3 lines going through it. I'm going to select the regression trend channels, click once on the bar for wave 3, and click once again on the low. And you'll notice 3 diagonal lines going down my chart. This is what I'm going to use as my trigger method to trigger myself into this trade. What I'm looking for is for a bar to close outside of the blue line in the regression trend channels. That's going to signify to me that wave 4 is potentially over and we're looking to move into wave 5 in the up direction. I'll go ahead and add a bar, and we have not yet closed outside. I'll add another bar, and now we have a bar that is closed outside of the regression trend channels. At this point, I need to begin asking myself some questions. I'm sorry? Absolutely. Yeah, the question was, can you enter the same way on a currency pair or on commodities? And the answer is yes. These strategies were actually researched and based on 30 years worth of commodity data. That's how all the statistics were come up with. So they were originally used on futures, and we found that they work just as well on stocks as well. So yes, you can do that on spreads. You can do any kind of information you want. You can do the same thing on mutual funds. So really any market that is traded, the same Elliott pattern and the same rules apply. Yes. Yes, sir? Yes, it does. Yes, it does. It figures that out on its own. I'm not going to go into how it does that. That's something that we would cover at a foundation seminar. But just know that it draws the median line, or the black line in the middle, and it places the blue and the red line 2 standard deviations away from the median line. It also calculates this 0.941 value up here as well, which is the Pearson R, which again is something that's covered at a foundation seminar. So looking at this market, we have a bar that closed outside of the top of the regression trend channels. I would use the top or the high of this bar to represent the point at which I would enter the market. So the high of this bar is roughly $19.30. If a bar comes in after this that exceeds $19.30, I would be long this market. At this point, I need to ask myself some questions. Mainly, is it going to be worth entering this market based on how much money I'm risking versus how much money I stand to gain? So in order to find that out, we need to find out for ourselves where we're going to place our stop, which in a type 1 situation, we place our stop at the low of wave 4. And we need to find out what our potential profits are going to be. And this is where we're going to talk a little bit about the mob, like someone asked a little bit earlier. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and select the mob tool on the right-hand toolbar, and then go up to the bar for wave 3, and left-click once, which places the mob on my chart. Yes, anywhere on this bar for wave 3. And you notice the mob show up here. You'll also notice, which I'm sure those of you who have had the program long enough have also seen, a black square on the left-hand side. What this black area is representing is the fact that we do not yet have substantial data to give us a confirmed mob. We don't have enough data yet. Let me explain what I mean by enough data. The mob uses 3 data sets in order to calculate itself. And I'm going to draw 3 arrows on the chart here. This first arrow, which is from the end of wave 2 to the end of wave 3, represents momentum 1. This is the big surge in the up direction. The next arrow from 3 to 4 is momentum 2. That's that profit-taking phase there. And from 4 up to 5 represents momentum 3. All 3 of these legs of momentum are used to calculate our mob projection. And since we have very little information in our momentum 3 leg, we have insufficient data to give us a confirmed mob. It's been my findings that this black square will go away once the high from wave 3 has been taken out. And I'll show you here in a moment, we'll get a bar that exceeded wave 3, and in the very next bar that comes in, when I redraw the mob, it'll redraw itself without that square. You'll also notice that the mob very rarely changes in price, even when that square is there. Most likely, it just shifts to the left and right in time. So we're going to use this mob as our price objective. We expect this market during wave 5 to get at least up to this mob, or just shy of $23. So we know our entry point, $19.30. We know our stop is about $17.45, and we know our price objective of roughly $23. I like math, but I don't like having to do it all the time, so I'm going to use the Fibonacci extension tool to figure our risk-reward. And before I draw this on here, I need to preface this with something first. When I'm talking about risk-reward, the reason this is important is because we are fallible creatures. I'm not right all the time. I have a percentage of time that I'm right, but it's not very high based on computer standards or based on what we'd all like to be as far as being 100% correct. What I'm about to show you is I'm going to calculate to find if we have a better than 1.6 to 1 reward risk ratio. The reason that number is chosen is because we can be only 40% accurate in our decision making and trading and still make money as long as we maintain a better than 1.6 to 1 reward risk ratio. And we're disciplined and we stick to it. That's the other part of it. What I'm going to do here is with my Fibonacci extension tool, I'm going to click first where our stop is going to be, and I'll make my second click at our entry price at the top of the bar that closed outside of the channels, and drag my mouse to the right and make my third click at the same price level. And you'll notice I have a 1.6 line right here, and our price objective exceeds our 1.6 line. This tells me that I have a greater than 1.6 to 1 reward risk ratio. Therefore, I would take this trade. So we're looking for a bar above this $19.28 line to give us our trigger into the market. So I'll go ahead and add a bar, and you'll see the very next bar triggers us into the market. So we would be long ZRAN on the 19th of June. And if I continue to add bars here, you'll see that yesterday we hit our mob. And if I go ahead and add one more bar, this is where we're at today. And I'm going to go ahead and remove that mob and redraw it again, and you'll see that it no longer has the black square on the left-hand side, indicating we have enough information, but we have a complete mob that has not changed in price. It's just kind of shifted over to the right a little bit. No, I usually err on the side of caution and just use, in an up market, I use the bottom of the mob, and in a down market, I use the top of the mob, just as my initial target. Are there any questions on that type 1 trading opportunity? Okay. Are there any questions on anything we've covered so far today? Okay. Well, okay, that's done with the search program. Right. Yeah, I haven't gone over the search yet. We were slotted to have 45 minutes here today, and we've had 46 so far. So it doesn't look like we're going to get very far with the search. The search is something that is covered very much in depth at the Foundation Seminar, if anyone has a chance to attend the Foundation Seminar. Yeah. You can use this for options, absolutely. And actually, the Type 1 trading opportunity that I just showed you is something that the Optionetics gurus use all the time to find a lot of their options plays. And they'll use the search to find something that's setting up for a Type 1. They'll look for these rules when they do their search. They look for an Elliott Wave 4, an oscillator pullback, and a PTI above 35, and they'll go through those and find those that meet their 1.6 to 1 reward risk, and make their decisions based on that. That depends on the duration that you would like to be in the trade. You know, if you're 2 to 3 months, you would probably do a weekly chart if you're looking to stay in a period of months. A daily chart would be to stay in a period of weeks, and a monthly chart would be if you're looking really long term. So you'll see, let's see, we were triggered into this trade on the 19th of June, and we met our price objective on the 8th of July. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 bars later. So less than 3 weeks we were in that trade. So you're probably looking 1 month out or less when trading on a daily chart. Right. So, well, that depends again on the style of trading that people like to do. There's a methodology out there that says take 90% of your position off at that point and leave the other 10% for glory land. You know, if it just happens to take off like gangbusters all of a sudden, you didn't miss out on it totally. You've got the other 10% still riding on there. So that's one way to look at it. If you're trading options and you're about to expire, you know, you're probably taking all of your position off. So it depends on what you're trading and how aggressive you want to be. Well, there's still a potential to do that. The mob just indicates a good price objective. It also indicates some resistance. Exactly. Exactly. Well, the whole time we've been speaking here, I've been recording myself. So we will have this available. I'm not sure at what point in time, and I'm not sure exactly where it's going to be. I'm going to go ahead and type my email address on the screen here. There's my email. I'm nate@advancedget.com. If you'd like to email me here in the next couple of days to find out where this is going to be posted, just send me an email and I'll send you the link to where it's posted online, and you should be available, or should be able to go in and view this online and review this session that we've done today. No problem. I would have loved to have gotten to the search today, but it looks like we're not going to have enough time. Yeah, it's going to be every Wednesday at 4:30 Eastern Time, and I'll probably, well, it's something that we'd like to do indefinitely. So I'm going to probably go on a little bit in the next session next week, and we'll have maybe 3 or 4 sessions in a row, and then I'll be going back and revisiting what we talked about on the first session again a little bit for those that might have joined us who are brand new. Yes, we can go over the ellipse feature as well. Okay. We'll go over all that. Yes, ma'am. No problem at all. And also, if you guys have questions that you would like to see gone over at a session, put that in your email that you send to me as well. No problem at all. Thank you all for joining us today, and we'll talk to you next time. Thank you. You too. Bye.